The twin suns of Gorthal blazed in the sky, casting long red shadows over the arena. The crowd roared as two deathworlder warriors clashed in the pit, their blades made from the bones of ancient beasts. Blood splashed the sand. One warrior fell. The other raised his arm in victory. They were called the Korak, a race feared across the galaxy. They lived on one of the most dangerous planets in the known universe, a world filled with lava storms, acid rains, and predators as big as ships. Every day on Gorthal was a fight to survive. Every child was trained from birth to kill or die. The Korak believed no other species could compare. They had conquered 5 solar systems. They had defeated every opponent sent by the Galactic Council. And most of all, they believed they were the only true deathworlders. In the Royal Hall, High Commander Varlock stood before Emperor Karan, his black armor stained from recent battle. "My Emperor," Varlock said, kneeling, "a strange object has been found near the asteroid belt. Our scouts retrieved it during patrol. It carries unknown symbols." Karan's eyes narrowed. "Bring it." A group of armored guards stepped forward, carrying a small metallic box, cold, dented, and humming softly with strange energy. On its side, a single word was burned into the metal. "Human." The room fell silent. None had heard this word before. "What language is this?" Karan asked. "No known code. It does not match any star nation, but..." The signal it emitted carried data logs. "Audio. Visual," Varlock replied. "Show me." A massive screen lit up. The room grew dark, static. Then a human face appeared. It was male, no fur, no armor. A soft voice began to speak, and behind him, flashes of terrible things. Hurricanes, wildfires, war, famine, freezing wastelands, and humans still walking through it all, laughing, crying, fighting. These creatures. One of the royal guards muttered, "How are they still alive?" Then the message ended with a line of spoken words. "If you find this, we are the children of Earth. We survive. Always." Karan rose from his throne, his mind racing. "Earth," he repeated. "What kind of world births these creatures?" Varlock clenched his fists. "They speak like survivors, but they look soft." "Yet they live in chaos," Karan replied. "We must know more." 2 days later, the elite scout vessel Bloodstalker launched from Gorthal. Aboard it were 6 of the Empire's finest warriors, led by Varlock himself. Their mission, find this Earth and test the strength of its people. After weeks of silent travel through dark space, the ship arrived near a small yellow star. The third planet from it pulsed with green and blue. Earth. The Korak warriors stepped down from their ship in a quiet forest region. Thick trees surrounded them, birds chirping in strange melodies. "This is no death world," one scoffed. "It's peaceful." Varlock raised a scanner. "High levels of life, dangerous weather patterns, volcanic zones, Arctic poles." "Wait." He turned slowly. Something massive had moved nearby. Suddenly the group heard loud growls, then a roar. A gigantic bear rushed out from the trees, but it wasn't attacking them. It was chasing a small human child who tripped over a root and fell. Before the Korak could react, the bear charged closer. But the child didn't scream. He grabbed a rock and threw it at the beast's eye with perfect aim. The bear stopped, dazed. Another human, an adult male, appeared, holding nothing but a stick, and faced the creature, a stick. Against a beast 10 times his size, but his eyes burned with fire. The bear backed away. The humans turned and walked off like it was nothing. The Korak stood frozen. "What? What did we just see?" One whispered. "Children playing near monsters," Varlock said in a low voice. Another warrior muttered, "Maybe. We are not the only deathworlders." The sun was just rising over the edge of the Earth when the Korak scout ship, Bloodstalker, silently landed in the dense northern forest. Mist clung to the treetops like ghosts, and the air carried a strange scent, wet, alive, and ancient. Commander Varlock was the first to step onto the soil of this unknown world. His heavy boots sank into the mossy earth. Around him the trees stood tall and silent, watching like ancient sentinels, "This place doesn't look dangerous," said Gron, the youngest warrior, gripping his plasma axe. Varlock didn't answer. He knelt down and ran his fingers through the dirt. It was cold, soft, yet something in it pulsed with hidden danger. Suddenly, a high-pitched screech echoed through the forest. All 6 warriors turned. Their weapons were ready in seconds. But what emerged wasn't a monster. It was a squirrel, tiny, fluffy, big eyes. It chirped once more and ran up a tree. "That's it?" said Gron, laughing. "This is their mighty world?" Then something else happened. From above, an owl dove down silently and grabbed the squirrel with steel-sharp talons. In 1 second, it was gone. The warriors fell silent. "This planet is strange," murmured Varlock. "Soft outside, but death hides in the small things." They walked deeper into the woods, scanning everything. Poisonous plants, insects carrying diseases, creatures that could leap from trees. Yet humans lived here like it was nothing. They found a narrow trail, human tracks. "Should we follow?" asked another warrior. "No," said Varlock. "We observe. They don't know we're here." But Earth had other plans. Just as they were about to leave, the ground shook. A rumble came from the valley below. Varlock raised his scope. By the stars, there was a tornado. A real one. Spinning across the land, tearing through trees like paper. But it wasn't nature that shocked him. It was the humans. Dozens of them were standing calmly outside their small houses, watching the storm. With phones in their hands, why are they not running? Gron gasped. "They're recording it," said Varlock, stunned. The tornado turned, moved back into the plains, and the humans cheered. "These creatures," whispered one of the warriors. "They laugh at the storm." Later that night, the warriors watched from a high cliff using cloaking tech. Below them, humans gathered around a fire. They were roasting meat, laughing, telling stories in a strange tongue. One man was shirtless in the cold night air. His skin steamed, but he didn't care. He was scarred. Each one told a story of survival. And yet he smiled. A child ran into the group, holding a snake. The others backed up, but no one screamed. The man took the snake by the head and calmly showed the child how to throw it far into the woods. Gron was trembling. "These people are not normal. They are used to pain," Varlock muttered. "They are not like us. But they don't wear armor. They don't need it." The next day, the Korak warriors moved closer to a nearby village. One human was cutting wood with a large axe. He missed once and hit his leg. Blood poured down. But he didn't cry. He tied a shirt around the wound and kept chopping. Another human woman lifted a heavy cart alone. No machines. Just raw effort. A teenage boy was walking barefoot across rocks and laughing. Everywhere they looked, these creatures were living in a world full of silent dangers, yet none of them showed fear. "Commander," said Gron quietly, "what if Earth is stronger than Gorthal?" Varlock stared into the human village for a long time before replying. "On our world, we survive through training, armor, weapons. But here, they survive because it's all they've ever known." He turned back to his team. "They are not pretending to be strong. They simply are." The others nodded slowly, and we've only seen the civilians. In the final moment of their second day, something changed everything. A loud crack came from the west, a gunshot. A wild animal, something massive and horned, charged toward the village. Before the Korak could respond, a single human soldier stepped forward, aimed, and took the beast down in one shot. Then he turned and looked directly toward the cliff. "Right, at the cloaked Korak scouts. Did he see us?" one asked. "No," said Varlock. But even he wasn't sure, because the human raised his hand and saluted. The Korak had seen enough to be unsettled, but they were still not convinced. "Yes, they are survivors," one warrior whispered. "But we are warriors." Commander Varlock didn't respond. His eyes were locked on the human who had saluted them the day before. A single human had sensed something was watching, despite the cloak. That shouldn't have been possible. The next morning, the Korak warriors followed him. They moved silently through thick trees, stepping over roots and ducking under vines. The human walked alone, carrying only a small pack. No armor, no weapon, just a walking stick. Is this some kind of trick? Gron asked. Varlock shook his head. He knows we are watching. I think he wants to be followed. They kept tracking, the human through fog, across shallow rivers and into deep forests. Then, without warning, the human disappeared. Where did he go? Varlock raised his scanner. Nothing. The man had vanished. The Korak spread out cautiously. Suddenly, snap. A thin vine snapped around one warrior's leg and flipped him into the air. He dangled upside down, roaring in anger. Another warrior stepped back and triggered a tripwire. Thorns burst from the ground. Ambush? No. Varlock muttered. Traps. Clever traps. Then came the voice. I thought you were hunters, the human said calmly, stepping out from behind a tree. He was still unarmed. Varlock stared. Why did you lead us here? To test you, the human replied. You think you're the only ones who know danger? Varlock took a step forward. You knew we were watching. I could smell your blood, the human said. Yours smells like burnt metal, Gron growled. You mock us? But the human didn't smile. Instead, he crouched down and began drawing in the dirt. These traps are old techniques. My grandfather taught me. His grandfather used them in wars. We learned to fight early, not with strength, but with pain, patience, and instinct. Varlock knelt beside the drawing. Why are you telling us this? Because you're not the first to test Earth, the human said, and you won't be the last. They followed the human deeper, finally arriving at a small wooden cabin beside a frozen stream. The human entered and came out with an old backpack and 2 bruised hands. He pointed toward a pile of firewood. Split that, without tools. Gron stepped forward and laughed. He punched the log with full force and broke 2 of his knuckles. The human raised an eyebrow. Use your head, not your fists. He picked up a stone and knocked 2 rocks together, slowly creating a groove. Then he inserted the wooden log between and split it clean. The warriors were stunned. Then came the final challenge. The human removed his boots and stepped onto a frozen patch of river ice. He stood there, barefoot, his skin turned red, then blue. You want to prove you're strong? Stand with me. None of them moved. He looked at Varlock. You come from a death world, right? So do I. But I don't fight my planet, I live with it. After a long silence, Varlock removed his boots and stepped onto the ice. The pain was instant, like 1,000 blades stabbing through his skin. His legs trembled. His vision blurred, but the human didn't move. Minutes passed, then Varlock fell. The human caught him. Now, he said softly, do you understand? Later that night, the Korak sat silently around the human's fire. None of them spoke. Finally, Gron broke the silence. He's not a warrior like us. Varlock finished the sentence for him. He's more. He doesn't fight for glory. He fights because he has to. The human looked at them and smiled faintly. You think strength is just in fists, but true strength is surviving, when everything wants you dead. Darkness covered the Earth's forest as the fire crackled quietly. The human sat across from the Korak warriors, watching them with calm eyes. Commander Varlock still felt the burn in his feet from standing on the frozen river. He had battled lava beasts and acid serpents, but nothing had hurt like cold silence in a man who never blinked. I want to know more, Varlock said, breaking the silence. The human stirred the fire with a stick. You came here thinking you were stronger. Now you're curious. We don't fear you, Gron said quickly. You should, the human replied. But not because of our weapons. The next morning, the human led them deep into the forest. They walked for hours through rough terrain. Sharp stones, thorny bushes, and biting wind. No technology, no machines. Finally, they reached a cave entrance hidden beneath roots and stone. Old, Forgotten. The human looked back. This is where your answer lies. Inside, the cave was cold and quiet. Ancient drawings covered the walls, figures holding spears, chasing mammoths, fighting other humans. Then came symbols of fire, flood, plague, explosions. These are your wars? Varlock asked. The human nodded. Our history. One painting showed a group of humans with strange boxes on their backs and flames coming from sticks, early flamethrowers. Another showed skies filled with flying machines dropping fire from above, cities burning. The Korak stared, speechless. You burned your own people? One asked. We survived ice ages, monsters, and each other, the human said. Not because we wanted to, but because Earth demanded it. They went deeper. In the far end of the cave stood a rusted metal door, half buried under rock. The human opened it slowly. Dust flew into the air. Inside was a room filled with relics, pieces of old armor, shattered glass helmets, old bullets, and faded flags. What is this place? Gron whispered. A memory, the human said. Before space travel. Before peace, when Earth almost killed itself. Varlock picked up a helmet with a broken visor. Why did you keep this? To remember what we became, and what we can become again. Varlock turned to the human. We saw your planet's beauty. The calm, the animals, the laughter. But this is Earth, the human said. Beautiful, deadly, cruel, and kind, all at the same time. It gave birth to humans and taught us to fight from our first breath. The Korak said nothing. Their people had fought enemies, but Earth had been their enemy, their friend, their test, and their teacher. The human walked toward a wall covered in names. My great-grandfather died here, not from aliens, not from beasts, from a world that never forgives weakness. He touched the wall. But even then we adapted, we rebuilt, that's what we do. Suddenly a sharp sound echoed outside. A howl. Varlock's head snapped up. That's no human. No, the human said. It's nature again, come. They exited the cave quickly. A wild predator, four-legged, massive, glowing eyes, was stalking a herd nearby. The Korak prepared their weapons, but the human held up his hand. He whistled once. The beast froze, looked at him, and ran away. How? Gron gasped. I've lived here longer than it has, the human said simply. As night fell again, the Korak returned to their ship, minds full of what they had seen. What now, Commander? One asked. Varlock looked at Earth one last time. Its skies were calm, but its lands held ghosts. Its people smiled, but they were made of steel and scars. We were blind, he said. We thought we were born of pain, but these creatures were forged in it. He clenched his fists. The galaxy must know. There is another Deathworld, and it's called Earth. A cold wind moved through the forest as the human stood in silence, facing the edge of a shallow canyon. Behind him, the Korak warriors watched, carefully. Their mission was simple now. Observe this man. Understand him. But today he was leading them somewhere different. He looked over his shoulder and spoke calmly. You've seen my world. Now you'll see why we survive. Commander. Varlock narrowed his eyes. What is down there? The human pointed toward the canyon. Something that's hunted me before. Something that doesn't care who's the strongest species. They climbed down the rocky walls and entered the canyon. It was silent. Too silent. Even the birds had vanished. The air was thick, heavy. Gron sniffed the air. Smells wrong. Suddenly the human stopped. There, from the shadows, a massive beast stepped forward. 10 feet tall, gray skin like stone, eyes like molten lava. Muscles rippled beneath its hide. Its breath steamed like smoke. The Korak readied their weapons, but the human did not move. You're unarmed, Varlock warned. I don't need weapons, for this. The human stepped forward slowly. The beast growled. Then like a lightning bolt it charged. The Korak moved to help, but the human raised his hand. Stay back. With nothing but his body, He dodged left, then right, rolling under the creature's claws. He slammed his shoulder into the beast's leg, flipping onto its back. His hands grabbed its eyes, temporary blindness. Then he jumped off, landing hard on the ground. The beast howled, slashing wildly. Blood sprayed, but it wasn't the humans. Varlock watched in disbelief. He fights like he knows the creature. He studied it, one warrior whispered. The human ducked another attack and slammed both fists into the beast's throat. It staggered, choking. Then, with a final move, he jammed a sharp stone into its neck. The beast fell, dead. The forest was silent again. The human stood there, breathing hard, bleeding from his arm. "You killed it? Without any weapon?" Gron asked, stunned. The human nodded. "I've fought it before. It learned. I learned more. But why not use a gun? A knife? Armor?" Varlock asked. The human turned to them and said quietly, "Because sometimes Earth doesn't give you time to grab a weapon. You either adapt, or you die." They returned to the human's cabin as dusk settled in. The fire was warm, but the silence among the Korak was cold. They had watched a man fight with nothing, no armor, no claws, no alien tech, just instinct, courage, and pain. Later that night, Varlock stood outside alone. The stars above Earth were strange, so different from Gorthal's red sky. The human walked up beside him. "You came to measure strength," the human said. Varlock nodded slowly. "And I found it, but not in the way I expected." "Strength isn't always muscles or weapons," the human said. "Sometimes, it's standing up even when you know you'll lose, but you stand anyway." Varlock looked at the human. "Why show us this? Why help us understand?" The human looked toward the dark forest. "Because one day something worse than us might come, and when it does, we'll fight together." The next morning, the Korak began packing their gear. Their ship was ready to return, but they didn't feel like conquerors anymore. They felt like students. Before leaving, Varlock turned to the human and bowed, not out of fear, but respect. "Earth is not just a death world," he said. "It is the forge of monsters and the cradle of survivors." The human nodded. "Tell the galaxy what you've seen, but also tell them this. Earth isn't looking for war." He smiled faintly, but it won't run from it either. The Korak scout ship Bloodstalker rose into Earth's upper atmosphere, its dark, wings slicing through the clouds. Commander Varlock stood near the viewport, staring down at the planet growing smaller beneath them. "Prepare the sample chamber," he said quietly. In the center of the ship, inside a thick glass vault, a small vial glowed with faint warmth. Inside it, just a few drops of human blood. Back aboard the main fleet near the edge of the solar system, the Korak scientists were waiting. They had questions, they had doubts, but soon, they would have answers. Inside the high-security lab, Dr. Narzul, a senior Korak biogeneticist, placed the vial into the scanner. "Begin full analysis," she ordered. The machine hummed. Symbols appeared on the screen. One of the assistants blinked in confusion. "Something's wrong." "No," Narzul whispered, eyes wide. "Something's different." The data rushed in. Cellular regeneration rate, faster than average. Pain resistance, adaptive. Tissue memory, unstable but reactive. Emotional triggers, directly impact adrenaline spikes. But the strangest thing, their biology was changing with stress. The more damage the cells received, the stronger they rebuilt. "This is impossible," said one scientist. "This is not evolution, this is reforging." Narzul leaned forward. "They don't just survive their world. They adapt to its cruelty and get stronger from it." A red alert blared suddenly. "Spontaneous mutation detected," shouted an assistant. "The sample is reacting to temperature, sound, even our presence." They froze. It was behaving like it was aware. Meanwhile, Commander Varlock entered the lab, arms folded. "What have you learned?" he asked. Narzul turned slowly, her face pale. "Commander, We used to believe we were born from the deadliest world in the galaxy, but we were wrong. She pointed at the screen. Earth. It doesn't produce life like other planets. It tests it, breaks it, rebuilds it. Varlock frowned. Explain. She tapped the blood sample window. This blood, these humans, they don't become stronger through calm. They evolve through trauma, through loss, through fire. Every human carries history in their bones. Not just stories, scars, memories, passed through DNA. Outside the lab, warriors gathered, whispering. Rumors were spreading fast. They killed a wild beast with bare hands. They live with death every day and smile through it. They are not soldiers. They are survivors. Varlock stood before the Korak Council days later, holding the data tablet in his hands. Counselors, he began. We set out to confirm we were the galaxy's only deathworlders, but instead we found the truth. He looked up, voice steady. There is a world that creates strength through pain, and people who adapt without machines, without shields, without fear. They are called humans, and Earth is the forge that made them. The room was silent. Then an elder asked, Are they a threat? Varlock paused. No, not unless you threaten what they love. Another voice asked, Do they seek war? No, but if war comes, they will not run. They will fight until the last breath, and if even one survives, he raised the tablet. He will learn. He will adapt. And he will come back stronger. That night, in his personal chamber, Varlock played the recording of the human one more time. We are the children of Earth. We survive. Always. He smiled. They are not like us, he whispered. They are worse. The stars above Gorthal were quiet, but tension buzzed through the Imperial command halls. For the first time in centuries, the mighty Korak Empire was unsure, not afraid, not weak, but deeply aware. They were not alone in being dangerous. They were not the only deathworlders. And now the galaxy needed to know. Commander Varlock stood at the center of the Galactic Council, a place where warlords, scholars, and rulers of over 100 species came to speak peace or declare war. The room was silent as he activated the holoscreen. Earth appeared, slowly spinning in the dark. You asked for my report, Varlock said. Here it is. The council watched as footage played. A human child running through a forest filled with wolves. A woman walking through snow with bleeding feet carrying firewood. A soldier standing alone against a charging beast armed with nothing but courage. Varlock continued. We believed Earth to be soft, unarmed, primitive, but what we found was a world that doesn't protect its children from pain. It teaches them through it. A lizard-like diplomat laughed. What threat can come from a species that fights with sticks? Varlock didn't blink. One that grows stronger each time they lose. He stepped closer to the center. They don't evolve. Over millions of years, they evolve through fire. Every battle, every failure, every broken bone makes them sharper, not just physically, but emotionally. A new voice, older, wiser, spoke. They are just another warrior race. Varlock turned slowly. No, they are not just warriors. They are mothers who carry children through fire. They are farmers who grow food where nothing should live. They are people who smile at the edge of death. He paused. They are not conquerors. But if attacked, they will burn stars to keep their own alive. Back on Earth, the human stood alone, watching the sky. He didn't know that his story had reached the stars, that his strength had shaken an empire, that galaxies were now whispering a new name. Earth. The next day, across dozens of systems, warnings were issued. Caution, Planet 3 of Sol System, Class Omega Deathworld. Species, human. Avoid conflict. But not all feared. Some grew curious. Some wanted to understand. And others wanted to challenge. Varlock stood at the window of his warship as it prepared to leave Earth's orbit. He watched as children below played in the snow, laughing, falling, getting up again. He turned to his second-in-command. Do you understand now? The warrior nodded. They don't need to be protected. They were built for danger. Varlock smiled. And the galaxy will learn we are not alone anymore. As the ship disappeared into the black, Earth remained still, calm on the outside but deep below its surface. In its mountains, deserts, cities, and frozen lands, the humans were awake, ready, and always watching.